any portion of a healthcare facility where patients are intended to be examined or treated. Areas of a healthcare facility in which patient care is administered or classified as general care or critical care areas. The governing body of the facility is going to do the designation as to whether or not it's general care or critical care. I had an electrical engineer who did a lot of work in healthcare, and he said one time, and only one time, he was told by the facility, you design the addition to the hospital and you make the decision whether it's critical or general care. And he did. And then, you know, they had change in administration before they finished, and they went back and told him, no, you should never have done that because these are wrong designations. We're going to use them as critical care rather than general care. And there's a lot of difference in how you do and what you do with the general care versus critical care. Governing body of the facility designates these areas in accordance with the type of patient care anticipated. And again, there's a new bunch of definitions for area classification in the 2014 NEC that we didn't find and we didn't have for the 2011 and previous code. The informational note says business offices, corridors, lounges, day rooms, dining rooms, and similar areas are typically not classified as patient care areas. Now I want to say one thing about that, and that is if I have a corridor, and that corridor is an overflow area for patients, and a lot of times they are because the corridor is a lot wider than normal, than normally what you would be required to have for any regular corridor. And the reason for that is, again, you have patients can be staged in those areas. Those patients that are staged there are normally not as critical as the ones that may be inside the rooms. Or maybe because there's so many people who are critical, they have to have them staged out in the corridor. They still need to have the same requirements in that corridor for those areas as they would. I mean, you can't run extension cords inside the rooms and set them up that way. You know, it's just not acceptable. So again, when I look at an application like this, obviously, you know, you could look at this and say that it's probably what? Critical care? Probably. Why? Because of the equipment that's there. Now, once you start looking at the equipment, you can make a decision oftentimes. But, you know, that's not always the case, because I could have different kinds of equipment in a general care area for monitoring different types of applications, couldn't I? Now, this one happens to be a specialty room, and it's called an isolation room. And I put this up here because I knew somebody that was actually in the isolation room. And I got these pictures by closing the door and putting a towel in front of the door where the, you know, where the flash wouldn't indicate that I was taking a picture. You have to be sneaky sometimes when you do these things. Or you open the aperture. You have that on tape, Martin? Oh my God. Am I in trouble?
Yes, I do. You can see me after class.
It's going to cost me a bundle to have you wipe that clean. No.
At least a 6-pack.
Yeah, at least that. Well, a bundle of 6-packs. So, anyway. No, the idea behind an isolation room is that rather than having negative pressurization, in other words, what's happening is you're pushing air normally into a room like this, and then if you don't have a return air in the room, then it's going out from underneath the door. So you're actually pressurizing that room and then pushing the return air out into the hallway in a lot of cases. But in this room, it's just the opposite. Because you might have an airborne disease, what's happening is that all of the air is coming into the room. The anteroom is where people actually get dressed up to go into the isolation room. And again, the hallway is at a greater pressure from a mechanical system than is the anteroom, and the anteroom is at a higher pressurization than what the isolation room is. Now, once it gets into the isolation room, what's supposed to happen is that you're supposed to take that air out and scrub it and clean it before you leave, have it spewed into the air. And I taught a lot of these classes, and some of the older facilities have set these isolation rooms up, and they don't have a scrubber. They actually scrub the air going out. And I said, that doesn't make me feel real comfortable going up on a rooftop unless I know that that stuff, the bad stuff has been scrubbed out of the air. Or just don't put yourself in a position to be anywhere close to, any kind of exhaust air coming out of the building. But the idea behind it is that you put the system in, it has a number of sensing devices, both in the anteroom as well as in the isolation room, to make sure that the pressurization of the room is in fact allowing the air to come in and not forcing the air out into the hallway. If you have some kind of airborne disease, you don't want to have it going throughout the hospital through the air conditioning system. And again, you can see this is just a normal room, normal